Hey everyone, we've all felt it, right? That moment you're trying to buy something, a car, a new phone, and suddenly it's either unavailable or the price has just gone through the roof. It feels like we're just bouncing from one tech supply crisis to another. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into why our tech supply chains just keep breaking.
It's a genuine puzzle. I mean, we have these unbelievably complex, incredibly advanced global systems to build our most cutting-edge tech, and yet they seem so brittle. The slightest hiccup and the whole thing feels like it's about to fall apart. So what is actually going on?
I mean, just think back to the great chip shortage. It wasn't that long ago. It literally brought whole industries grinding to a halt. You had car factories going silent, and trying to get your hands on a new PlayStation was basically a full-time job, all because of a tiny little piece of silicon. And it's not just the super fancy processors. Look at something like computer memory, DRAM. The prices go on this absolutely wild roller coaster. One year, it's dirt cheap. The next, prices are skyrocketing. That creates massive headaches for everyone, from cloud data centers to the PC you're trying to build at home. This problem goes way beyond consumer electronics, too. It even hits heavy industry. We've seen brand new airplanes, fresh off the assembly line, just sitting on the tarmac, unable to fly because of shortages of jet engines and other critical parts. I mean, these aren't just minor glitches. These are massive shocks to the system. Now, you'd think companies would be all over this. And you'd be right. They're not just sitting around waiting for the next disaster. They've actually been rolling out a whole playbook of really smart, logical fixes to try and make themselves more resilient. You know, the whole just-in-time delivery model taught everyone a very hard lesson. So now, the smart companies are doing things like diversifying their suppliers, keeping extra critical parts in stock just in case, and even using sophisticated AI to try and predict when the next demand spike is going to hit. They're building up a whole new survival toolkit. And this really highlights a fundamental change in thinking. It used to be that having an idle factory line or extra inventory was seen as pure waste. It was inefficient. But now, that view is completely flipping. Resilience, that ability to take a punch and keep going, is now seen as a crucial strategic asset. It's a genuine competitive advantage. So here's the mystery at the heart of all this. If individual companies are getting so much smarter and they're doing all the right things, why do these massive industry-wide breakdowns keep happening over and over again? Why aren't all these sensible fixes actually fixing the problem? Well, the answer is that we've been looking in the wrong place. The real culprit isn't bad management or lack of foresight at individual companies. It's actually a deep, fundamental failure of the market itself. Let me say that again, because this is the single most important point of this whole explainer. These constant shortages, they're not some temporary bug we can just patch. The problem is baked right into the DNA of our modern, hyper-efficient economic system. Okay, to really get this, we need a quick dive into an economic idea called a public good. The classic example is a lighthouse. Every ship out at sea benefits from its light, right? But you can't exactly send each ship a bill for the light they used. So everyone benefits, but it's almost impossible to make any one person pay for it. Now here's where it gets mind-blowing. Think about spare manufacturing capacity, like an extra factory just sitting there ready to go. That spare capacity is a public good. When a crisis hits, everyone benefits from it being there. But the enormous cost of building and maintaining that factory is paid for privately by a single company. And this creates this perfectly toxic mix of reasons not to build that spare capacity. First, you get the free rider problem. Why should my company spend billions on a spare factory when I can just hope my competitor does it and I can benefit? Second, Wall Street actually punishes companies for having inefficient idle assets sitting on their balance sheets. And third, when a shortage does start, everyone panics and double orders, creating this insane demand shockwave that no single company could ever possibly prepare for. Altogether, these forces basically guarantee that the system will be fragile. Okay, so if the market, left to its own devices, can't solve this, what can? Well, we have to stop thinking about company-level fixes and start looking at system-level solutions. And it turns out there are about 4 big ways we can tackle this coordination problem head-on. We could treat some of this critical manufacturing capacity like a public utility, the same way we treat the power grid. Or we could create brand new markets where companies actually pay just to reserve future factory time. Governments could also step in and act as a sort of insurer of last resort. And finally, we could create rules to stop the kind of panic buying that brings the whole system down. Now, I know that all sounds a bit abstract, so let's make it really concrete. Let's look at how these different solutions are already being used in the real world, in those three industries we talked about at the start: memory, jet engines, and high-end computer chips. This is where it gets really fascinating, because you see that the solution is different for each industry, tailored to why its market fails. For DRAM, it's a commodity business with razor-thin margins, so the fix that's emerging is buyer pre-commitment, where huge customers like Google or Amazon sign massive multi-year deals to lock in supply. For jet engines, the problem is that you can't just build half an engine factory. So the industry is shifting to long-term service contracts. You're not buying an engine, they're buying power by the hour, often with the defense industry acting as a silent partner. And for advanced logic fabs, the investment and the geopolitical risks are just too massive for any one company. The only solution is state backstopping, with governments stepping in with billions to de-risk the investment.
So what does this all add up to? When you take a step back, what we're seeing is a quiet but absolutely massive revolution in how we think about, build, and pay for the physical foundation of our digital world. If you take away just one thing, let it be this. In all these critical industries, the solution is to separate the capacity to make things from the things themselves. You're not just buying a chip anymore, you're buying a guaranteed right to a slice of that factory's output for the next 3 years. And this chart just perfectly lays out the new rules of the game. We are moving away from the chaotic world of spot markets and short-term thinking. The new model is all about reserving capacity in advance, making multi-year commitments, and focusing on guaranteed availability, not just squeezing every last drop of utilization out of a factory. The age of being a free rider is coming to an end.
Ultimately, what this all means is that resilience is no longer free. That spare capacity, the thing we all desperately need in a crisis, is becoming a real, tangible asset. It's something that is insured, that is paid for in advance, and that's treated almost like a financial option. You're paying for the right to use it, whether you actually do or not. This shift is it's huge. We're essentially moving away from a pure free market system for our most important hardware, not because of some ideology, but out of pure necessity. And that leaves us with a really big question to think about. If the free market can no longer provide the resilience we need for the literal foundation of our modern economy, what other parts of our world might be next?